and thanks for joining us on this HOA leader video chat with two of our experts. My name is Gabriella Falisco. Today, I'm joined by Todd Skoronsky of Michigan and Dan Miskey of Wisconsin. And we are discussing who can run for the board. And this is in response to a reader's question. Essentially, our reader wants to know if a person who holds the power of attorney granted by an owner and who is the resident of the unit is eligible for board service. Our reader says their governing documents state that to be a member of the HOA, you must be an owner on title. And our reader is the HOA's governance chair and has asked the board for further information on who owns this unit. And our reader was told, hey, the burden's on you to prove this person isn't an owner. And the president also called this power of attorney holder a proxy, although there's no documentation to support either a proxy or power of attorney. So in this video, we're going to discuss the general question of whether someone holding a proxy or who's been granted power of attorney by a member can run for the board. And in the second video, Todd and Dan will discuss generally whose burden is it to prove someone is eligible for board service and what documentation the board can and should ask of candidates. Just a note, this information is intended to provide you with background information you can use approaching an expert in your state. These two are speaking based on the laws in their own state. So with that in mind, let's throw it to Dan. Dan, what's the Wisconsin rule here?
So in Wisconsin, the answer is going to be fairly straightforward, I think, which is probably yes, because I can't find anything that says no. It seems odd because in Wisconsin, the law is such that absent something to the contrary in the bylaws, they can have a non-unit owner on the board of directors, at one non-unit owner on the board of directors. And as such, it would seem to make sense that if you have a power of attorney and you step into the shoes of the person that's there. Having said that, I've never seen it, never heard of it until you brought this question to me. Did a quick Google search to see what it said relative to any other states. There was literally almost the exact same question that dealt with in Florida. And in Florida, the answer was a clear no, but it had different language. I just can't find something in view of the power of attorney powers that says no. And I can understand situations. I can think of situations where it would actually make sense. 2-unit condominium, the one person is disabled and mentally incompetent. They have a power of attorney. You'd want them in a 2-unit condo to have some say relative to their unit. So that's kind of where I come down on this. But like I said, I thought I've seen everything, but I've not seen this.
Interesting. Todd, tell us about Michigan.
Sure. So actually in Michigan, the answer is it really depends on what the governing documents say. Typically speaking, in Michigan, in the governing documents, when it talks about the ability to serve on the board, it'll define who can sit on the board. Now, if it said that anybody can sit on the board, then it would probably shake out the same way as it does in Dan's situation. However, more often than not, most of the time, if not all the time, it says board members must be members, or if they're a business entity, a partner or an officer or a director. So that begs the question, could a power of attorney, let's say someone has a power of attorney from a co-owner, can that power of attorney person themselves run for the board? And my conclusion is no, they couldn't. What they could do is the person for whom they hold the power of attorney could run for the board and be elected. The owner, the person on the title, could be elected, and then the power of attorney could act for them. But the power of attorney standing alone, I do not believe would allow a person to serve on the board just merely by being a power of attorney. I think they would have to be on the title or acting on behalf of a person who is on the title, who got elected to the board, and then the power of attorney can speak on their behalf and basically carry out their functions on the board.
Interesting. Do you think it would have to be disclosed, now that you brought this up briefly, do you think it would have to be disclosed to other owners before an election if somebody was intending to have their power of attorney serve on their behalf if they were elected?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't think it would necessarily have to be disclosed. I could see a person not wanting to make that publicly known. That said, I don't think other board members or the ownership would You know what, that's probably a sensitive question, because typically when you have a power of attorney, you're dealing with someone who's perhaps disabled, unable to take care of themselves. Or it comes into effect after, let's say a board member gets on the board and is subsequently disabled, and the power of attorney has to step in for them. I think as a matter of good practice, if you're running for the board, if you're wanting to represent your community, you should disclose all the material facts and let the chips fall where they may. But I'm not aware of any specific duty to disclose that would be the case.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Todd and Dan, for your quick takes on the topic. And listeners, thanks for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next month.